You ready for these debates on Tuesday?
Oh, God. There's not enough wine in the world.
I mean, it should be entertaining.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well,
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it, but it's gonna be painful.
well, you said there's not going to be any crowds.
I'm not even sure about that. I haven't checked. I'm assuming because of COVID that there won't be an audience, which is something I always wish debates would be like anyway. I never like the idea of an audience at a debate. I think it takes away from it.
I don't think so. It's kind of like American Idol.
Right. There shouldn't be an audience. It's not a performance. It's a debate.
I mean, I guess. Whatever. Welcome to While She's Napping. I am Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
So last week, apparently people really wanted to know about our guilty pleasures.
I think it was yours specifically.
It is thus far the best performing episode of the month of September.
Oh, wow.
So here's to it. Thank
Yeah.
you for everyone that has listened to that episode. And if you have figured out my secrets, well, now you know.
It's worth listening. I'm still laughing about it.
Why?
It was just so unexpected. I love it.
Hey, so speaking of, let's start off by thanking people. So let's thank people from the US, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, Norway, Austria, France, India, Sweden for listening to us. We appreciate you listening to all the guilty pleasures that we outlined. Specifically within the US, we'd like to thank Rhode Island, of course, Massachusetts, California, Florida, New Hampshire, New York, Texas, Virginia, Louisiana, Delaware, Ohio, Arizona, Connecticut, Washington, D.C.,
Oh, wow.
Georgia, Michigan, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and of course, parts unknown. Yeah, it says District of Columbia.
Specified. Mm-hmm.
So Trump's listening.
Yeah.
He now heard that you are anticipating his debate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, speaking of, since you touched on the debates and
Sure.
Washington, D.C. and all that, a quick follow-up on the plug I did last week about the volunteer opportunities and letter writing and all that stuff. I want to thank, if any of my friends who have joined me in that campaign are listening, I want to thank you so much. I just went back in and looked at what our tally is. So for all the people that have reached out to me and offered to help with the letter writing,
right,
for Vote Forward, we've collectively written or committed to writing over 500 letters.
Sweet.
Which is incredible. So I still have about 100 more to go. And if anyone else wants to join, I want to make it a personal goal to, within my circle, reach 1,000. And we have until October 17th to send out these letters. So if you're interested in joining me, let me know. It's super easy. Or you can go to Vote Forward to get more information on that. But that is super exciting that I have so many people who have joined me in that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Just shoot us a DM on the Instagrams.
Yeah.
Or the Facebook. Why don't you go over the socials so they know how to do that if they
Good
want
timing.
to.
So facebook.com/while she's napping. We're also on Instagram at while she's napping. We're on Twitter at she's napping pod, or you can send us an email at while she's napping@gmail.com.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's definitely important for people to get involved and to at least be registered.
Yes.
But, obviously taking the next step of encouraging people to vote or...
Yep, and this is a nonpartisan thing. It's literally just nudging people to vote, people who are infrequent or unlikely voters, or maybe who haven't voted in a previous election. It's just a handwritten letter to try to nudge them to get involved and make their voice heard. So it's a really cool campaign.
Apparently 60% of those... I don't know if I got this right. 60% of registered voters didn't vote or did vote in the last election. I think 60% did vote.
Yeah.
So
even registered voters don't end up showing up.
That means 40% did not vote.
Mm-hmm. The percentage of people who actually vote in our country is pretty sad.
I mean...
It's pretty low.
Well, we can talk about that some other time.
Yeah. But anyway, if you want to get involved, contact us. I'd love to have you help me reach my goal of 1,000 letters.
Yeah, get involved. Hey, so today, first of all, happy anniversary.
You too.
Yesterday, we were recording this Sunday evening, so Saturday night, Saturday in general, Cindy and I had been married for 5 years. That's wood. That is
I didn't even
wood.
look it up.
I was supposed to carve you something.
I guess so.
Like Jesus. make you something with my hands. I didn't do that.
That's okay.
So we've been together now for 5 years, legally married wise.
Married for 5 years.
We've been together for 13.
Almost 14.
Almost 14 at this point. So we thought it would be fun to sort of reflect on our marriage in general. And obviously we're going to miss some things. Obviously there's going to be some things that we're going to re-listen to this episode and say to ourselves, shit, we should have mentioned this, but we did. Obviously, we're not going to cover everything, but we're also going to cover, if you're interested in getting married or you're interested in popping the question, maybe some of this will help you somewhat prepare for that a little better or whatnot. If you're finding yourself lost in the weeds right now, maybe
as much as you can prepare in the age of COVID and planning an event like a wedding. That's something we didn't have to deal with 5 years ago.
It should be noted that we are not experts here, right? So we're not laying this out to say this is how it should be done.
Yeah, no, we're an
average
couple that doesn't have any expertise in marriage counseling or relationships or anything like that. We're just speaking from our experience.
Yeah. This is sort of a carryover from the So You Want to Have a Kid episode. This is So You Want to Get Married. And, some of the things that I wish people told me.
Sure.
Specifically about the wedding itself.
Yep.
Because when it comes to being with you, we were together for so long before then. I already knew.
Right. Not a lot within our relationship itself has changed since we got married.
Nothing.
But we'll talk about that.
Right. So having said that, again, Cindy, you just touched on it. If you are planning a wedding or unfortunately your wedding got postponed because of COVID, you're already ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So keep your head above water. Keep your head up. That's all I got.
Yeah, try to have patience, I guess, is the best advice that we could give. But that must be super stressful, and all the unknown and uncertainty surrounding that adds a whole nother layer of complication to what can already be a very overwhelming and stressful process. So I feel for you.
So, hey, before we get into that, I just wanted to say, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, basically wherever you get your podcasts fixed from, we welcome you. We hope you enjoy the show. We hope we can provide you with some sort of insight in terms of married life and preparing for a wedding. If you like what you hear, and even if you don't, leave us 5 stars and a quick review on Apple Podcasts, and more specifically, whatever platform you are listening to us on, just subscribe to us, right? We'll do different topics on a weekly basis. October, we're going to focus on election issues. We're going to try to be nonpartisan about it. Obviously, our bias will bleed in. It just will. But, for anybody that wants to listen to a discussion about issues that are stemming around this election, for the month of October, minus one episode in which we'll do a Halloween episode. Keep it locked. Subscribe. You won't miss a thing. We release an episode every Monday morning. So
that being said, the only thing I want to add to that is, I laugh about the whole nonpartisan thing. If you've listened to any of the episodes, you've heard at least my ramblings about this, or if you follow me on social media. So you know where I stand. But we are going to be interested in hearing from people who don't necessarily share our perspectives or our positions leading up to these conversations. We really do want to hear all sides and how different people look at these issues. So absolutely, when we release what we're going to be talking about in any given week, please send us your opinions. We really do want to cover, as best we can, the other side of the issue.
Yes, it's very important. So anyways, all right, so how do you want to structure this? Which one do you want to do first? You want to talk about being married? Do you want to talk about preparing for one?
I think we should talk about the wedding itself first, and then we can second half talk about what has changed or not since then.
Sure, yeah. So for me, when it came to the wedding, look, if you're planning one or you just got proposed to or you just proposed and you're thinking to yourself, okay, now what do I do? How long do we wait until we arrange the marriage, get married, whatnot? For me, the more time you have to plan, the better. For me personally, obviously, things will vary. Maybe you have time constraints. I understand that. But for me, I remember when we first got, engaged, you said, I want to be married in a year. Yeah. And I said 2. We need to sort of wait on this and prepare and make sure we have our bearings underneath us. So we ended up waiting 2 years.
It was a little over 2 years, actually. It was almost
Right.
2.5. But I'm sitting here chuckling because, yeah, moving quickly and all of this was definitely not your style. The lead up to us getting engaged was 6 years.
Yes, we had been together for 6 years.
Which most of it we lived together. And so it was, a good chunk of it.
No. We got together in 2007. We started living with each other in 2010. So
yeah, okay. So like half of our relationship we had lived together. And I think it was kind of a little bit of a running joke of everyone was kind of just waiting for you to pop the question because we'd been together for so long. But
right.
I think the timing ended up making perfect sense for us. I mean, you ended up proposing right after I finished grad school.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a month after I graduated. And so I was glad to not have to be also planning the wedding or anything while I was still trying to focus on finishing my graduate degree. That would have just been too much. And I think the timing ended up being really good. But it was kind of a running joke within our circle for a few years of wondering when you were finally going to pop the question.
Yeah, obviously people, your situations are different. Maybe you're not going to go to grad school. Maybe you're both out of school and whatnot. But for us, the way I looked at it is, we were funding a good portion of this wedding. We were fortunate enough that our parents did chip in, but we were funding a good portion of this wedding. And I said, look, we should take the time to make sure we have the venue that more or less you wanted. It didn't really matter to me. It did to a degree. But, for you had a world vision of this since you were 12. Make sure we have the venue we want, make sure we have a DJ we can afford, make sure we have all the bells and whistles that we want to do, and moreover, make sure that we have the availability for the venue that you wanted to go to, right?
Right, we wanted to have our options.
Right. We wanted to have everything we wanted. So for us, 2 years was a nice little groove period, and we were fortunate enough to get what we wanted for the wedding. And when you have that long to plan for it, I do think that you can space things out easier, and you're not necessarily so stressed to get things done last minute. And
until the last minute, because there are some things you just can't do until right up at the end.
Of course, there will still be things that you're going to stress out about and try to jag in there for the past, for the last couple
months,
weeks of planning. But moreover, or more or less rather, you have everything down pat if you do it for that long.
And I learned pretty quickly so right after we got engaged in July. And then I think we had our venue booked by September or October of that same year. And I learned when we went to look at venues, it was a good thing we were looking 2 years out, because the time of year that we wanted, all the dates that would have been available the following year were already booked.
Yeah.
It wasn't even an option. We would have had to do it in a different season or push it out a whole nother year. So that's what we were already kind of leaning towards. So it worked out just fine. And little tip, they lock you into the price that is for that year, because you sign your contract and you book it, and it goes up every year. So the year we got married, we were paying what
it was 2 years
cost 2
cheaper.
years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a perk too.
Yeah. It has its benefits, but obviously if you have time constraints, say for instance, and I'm just spitballing here, you got engaged and
you're moving,
or your partner's being stationed somewhere for military reasons. Obviously you might want to get married relatively quickly, and you have to sort of speed things up the process. But if you have the available time, 2 years, in my opinion, is a nice little groove period. The number one thing that I wish people told me when we were prepping for a wedding is, and anybody that's prepping for a wedding, this goes out to you, and take these words to heart. If you're going to take anything that we talk about today, take these words to heart. This is your wedding. This is about you. This is not about your parents. This is not about your uncle. This is not about your boss. This is not about your parents' boss. This is not about your parents' friends that they want there that you never met. This is about you. You get to decide what goes on for your wedding, period, and end of story.
Yep. Although I will say, on the other side of that, pick your battles.
Oh, no.
Because
yes,
I'm saying, like, if you know that telling one of your parents that so-and-so, like one of their best friends or something, even if you don't know the person, if they're very close to that person and they've been talking about this for a long time, for years, whatever, since you were a kid, and it's something that that person has always looked forward to sharing with your parent or whatever. Like, this is a hypothetical situation, but I'm saying you might not want to devastate your parents over something that's
of course
ultimately pretty inconsequential, like just having another person at the wedding. Like,
right. When it comes to specifics like that, that's fine. I'm saying if there's someone in your group or, you know, your immediate family or your wedding party or whatever that's trying to encourage you to invite a certain individual that you don't even know, or a group of individuals that you don't even know, and you feel that you have to just to satisfy someone, no, you don't.
Right.
And I should preface this. Neither of our parents did this to us.
No,
right? So,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is hypothetical.
Right. I've heard horror stories about people that, you know, their parents are funding the wedding, and then they say, well, I want these people to go. And they use the funding as a bargaining chip.
Right.
Rather than, this is for you. This is a gift for you.
Yep.
Right. And for me, if that happened to me, which it didn't, but if that happened to me, I'd say, well, I don't want your money then. Right. You can't give me this gift, although I do appreciate it. You can't give me this gift and then tell me, oh, by the way, now I get to dictate a good portion of the guest list.
Right. Yeah, I think it's what I was saying is if it's like one individual person and it's really going to, you know, hurt the feelings of someone who you care about, you might not want to fight that battle. You might want to let that go. But if it's a situation where it's like it's going to double your guest list or something, and it's going to end up with you having this humongous event, if you wanted to go for a small intimate wedding, and it's going to completely change the whole thing from what you envisioned and what you want, that's probably worth sticking to your guns and, you know, not letting them make that decision for you. So, but yes, pick your battles. Yeah,
pick your battles, and just remember this is your wedding. This is about you. So if there's a ceremony that you don't necessarily want to celebrate, I know some people, I'm not going to, you know, name names obviously, but there was pressure to have a religious ceremony and they didn't want a religious ceremony. And that's okay. There was pressure put on the couple or the bride and groom to have some sort of Christian service. If you don't want that, or even if you do and it's vice versa, whatever, this is your wedding. You get to decide what kind of service you want, what kind of wedding you want, what celebrations you want during it. My point is that that's up to no one else but you. Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to, you know, thinking about what it was about our wedding that I enjoyed the most, and I couldn't necessarily pick one specific element. I think the thing that always comes to my mind is just the general atmosphere of it and how it just felt like us. Like,
oh, it's perfect.
It was a perfect reflection of us as people and as a couple, and I think that resulted in the atmosphere that we had of everyone just having a genuinely good time. And it was just so fun and relaxed, and I think that is a result of the fact that we did stick to what we really wanted, and we didn't let any of those kind of big things shift what we had our vision for.
And to be fair, like I said, we didn't have these sort of pressures,
right?
And if we did, I certainly don't recall them, and if we did, we probably put a stop to it immediately.
But I think we were pretty clear up front. I don't even think anyone really tried. If they did feel really strongly about any particular thing, nobody really voiced that. I think because it was I think we just made it abundantly clear that we were going to do what we wanted to do. And we just didn't really care about like any conventional, like, you know, elements that other people might expect.
Right.
We didn't care if we didn't meet those expectations because it wasn't about meeting other people's expectations.
We got married outside. It was a non-religious ceremony.
One of our good friends married us.
Yes, which was great.
Yeah, he did. It was his first time, and he did an amazing job.
It was great, and you know, it was right at sunset for an autumn evening in New England. It was perfect.
Yep,
it was absolutely perfect, and we did a first look. Mostly because of the sunsetting time. If we were to take pictures after the ceremony, it would have been too dark.
Right. The lighting was best at that time. And also because we wanted to be able to participate in the cocktail hour before dinner. Yeah. We didn't want to have to, I've been to a lot of weddings where the bride and groom have to go table to table and greet every single guest. And that's why they end up don't eating. Well, because we didn't have to, because we made our rounds during cocktail hour. That was strategic. True. I didn't want to be away taking pictures, which is traditionally what they do. The bride and groom and the whole wedding party don't get to participate in cocktail hour.
Right.
And then at dinner, that's their first opportunity to go and greet everybody.
Mm.
And I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to be able to sit down and eat that food.
Yeah, because we paid for it.
Yeah, and it was delicious.
Cheese plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so having said that, if I were also to stress importance of something, get a good DJ. Get a
Right.
DJ that will do anything you want without question. So when we were meeting our DJs, first of all, if you feel pressured in any situation when you're meeting a photographer or a DJ,
Any
whatever,
vendor.
walk away.
Yeah, if you feel like they're car salesman-y,
Just walk away.
yeah.
You're in the driver's seat. So we were the first, or one of the first DJs that we met. He was like, look at my book.
My
It's all
portfolio.
I'm all
Yeah.
booked. I'm all booked up. You got to book me quick. And we were like, we're out of here.
yeah.
We're out.
hmm
See you
That's all
later.
he cared about was the bottom line of getting us to commit.
Yeah. So we went with another DJ, and he was showing us his, playlist. He was showing us wedding videos, examples of what
examples,
he
yeah.
was doing. Luckily, he too did wedding video taping.
Right. We ended up doing the DJ, video, and the photo booth were all
Mhm.
through the same
open
vendor.
air photo booth,
Yep.
which was really cool. And we had, or at least I had, a priority that when we introduced the wedding party and the two of us, we were coming out to wrestling themes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, the DJ said, "Oh, I've already done that."
Yeah,
That's
he
fine.
wasn't phased whatsoever.
No, he's like, "I've done that before." And he showed us a video of
Yeah.
it. And he's like, "Do you want to do something like this?" And I
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, but I want to sort of change it up."
Yep.
And it was great.
No, but he
So-
worked with you. The communication was great. It was the back and forth of
Yes.
what songs in what order for which people. Like, what is the feel you want? Do you
Yes.
want me to like be the MC? Do you want me to like? So yeah, he was awesome about it, and
Yes.
it ended up being. I think it set. I mean, I think our ceremony kind of set the tone for the wedding because it was still. I mean, it was traditional in the fact that we obviously exchanged vows. We did all those.
But it was funny.
Right, but we also were pretty relaxed and I think that did set the tone already, but then the intro to the reception being wrestling themes
Yeah.
with our officiant coming out to the Stone Cold Steve Austin soundtrack and what is it called? What do you do with the beers?
He
Is there-
slammed the beers
I thought
together.
I thought there was a name for it.
No, he just
Okay.
slammed them together like
I was
Stone
thinking of like
Cold.
shotgunning a beer, but that's not it.
No,
but
no,
yeah.
he came out. I got him a T-shirt that said Reverend 926 because that's the day we got born.
We got
born. Our relationship was born that day. And on the back of the shirt it said, "I just got you married,"
Yeah.
instead of "I just whooped your ass," like
Yep.
Stone Cold would say. And he came out with that shirt on. He had the Stone Cold belt. And a friend of ours chucked him 2 beers.
Yep.
And he
He
smashed
smashed
them
'em.
together and poured them all over his
Yeah.
face, and obviously missed his mouth, but
Yeah.
he chucked them and ordered 2 more. Thrown,
Yep.
did it flawless. It was perfect.
It was great.
and the venue
and-
did not give a shit.
No, they didn't care. They came behind him and cleaned it up
Cleaned it
and
right up.
waited for the next
They were
person.
probably like, "Oh, another fucking Stone Cold."
Yeah. Maybe that happens all the time. But yeah, that set the tone for the reception. And then we came out,
We came out to DX,
yep, with our tag team champion belts.
and you crotch chopped.
Yes, I did,
in your
in my
wedding
wedding dress.
Perfect. Love it.
But that set the tone that we were there to have fun.
Yeah, and you come out.
And we didn't take ourselves too seriously.
I was
that's for
Shawn
sure.
Michaels. I had the cowboy hat on. we did 4 crotch chops. Like, suck it, yeah, yeah. And
so
then
inappropriate.
come away with me.
Yeah, but then we immediately, our first dance was to Norah Jones.
Immediate 11-2.
But I think our DJ said something funny about it. He was like, and for a little change of pace or
Mhm.
something like that.
Point is, get a good DJ that
Yeah.
will work with you.
Yeah, we said like from the beginning, and a lot of people had given me this advice, and I found it to be true. The like pillars, like the most important things, like don't get caught up in the small details because no one's gonna remember those things. But the
photography.
venue, the photographer,
And the
and the
music.
DJ. Those are the
Food
most,
is important.
Food is important too, but at least in our experience, the food came. The venue and the food was the same. It was all on site. We didn't have to get an offsite caterer to bring the food in,
No.
so that was one less decision we had to make. And this place had good food. So
See, weddings that I go to that weren't ours, obviously, I don't remember the food.
yeah,
So I can't really
as long as it
recall if
doesn't
it was good or
suck.
bad. So
Like-
in my idea, most of the guests for our wedding probably didn't even remember the fucking food.
that's what I mean. It doesn't have to be like
But I
spectacular,
remember
one of
our
your
food.
most memorable meals of your life. It just,
No,
so
but-
I'm saying, as long as it doesn't suck, it's fine.
But for our wedding, obviously, I remember
Yeah.
our meal being
I still remember
awesome.
because I ate my baked stuffed shrimp at 3 a.m. when we went
Yeah.
back to the hotel room.
But I remember it being awesome. And I said, okay, everything about this is great.
Yeah.
Because it's our wedding, I'm
Right.
obviously paying more attention to it. But get a good DJ. That is very important. And a photographer, of course, is great. That will work with you.
And the videographer, we went back and forth on getting a video
I'm
done
glad
for a
we did
long
it.
time. I'm glad we did too. And we ended up being able to because your parents generously paid for it.
But when
and
it
now we
comes-
watch it every year on our
Yes.
anniversary,
Yes. It's a tearjerker.
which
But
is great.
every, when we had the DJ, he said, do you have any special requests? And I said, yes. And this is when we were planning. I said, you need to play Nookie by Limp Bizkit. And you said, end of night.
Yeah.
End of the night. And he was kind enough that day of the wedding when we sat down after, everything we're starting to eat, comes up to us. He said, is there anything else you want?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes. You need to play Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio at some point.
Because the morning of our wedding,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, the morning of our wedding, I said, time to get married. And I sent you a bunch of pictures of Coolio.
That's what I woke up to. I
And
woke up.
an MP3 of Gangsta's Paradise.
Yep. That's what I woke up to.
So we played it. It was great. And that day I realized that he says, been spending most of our lives living in a Gangsta's Paradise.
What
I
did
thought
you
it
think
was
it said?
Kickstands and
Did
motion lights.
lights?
Kickstands and motion lights. When you live the gangsters. I don't know.
You
Like,
must have told me that before
you
because I
put a
had that lyric in
kickstand
my
up
head.
on your bike because you're in Gangsta's Paradise.
Oh my God.
And you try to walk by a house and a motion light comes on.
Oh,
If
that's
you
great.
listen to that song, it sounds like
Well,
it.
now that's all I'm ever going to hear.
Kickstands and motion. Anyways.
Yeah. So yes, venue, DJ, photographer. Our photographer was great too. She had an
Yes.
amazing sense of humor.
Yes.
She got some hilarious pictures, like,
Oh, yeah.
when people weren't looking. Like,
Yes.
they were great.
Videographer was great because for me, I didn't even realize that person was taping. Had no idea
Right.
where this person was.
Same thing with the photographers.
Yeah. No
you
idea.
don't even notice them.
But you're right. The little details that you're stressing about, not like centerpieces.
Well, that's what I did all that shit myself
Yeah,
because I didn't want to spend I was willing to make an investment in those big things.
Yeah. DIY shit is clutch. But
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, no one gives a fuck about your centerpieces.
No, I know. I mean, especially when you have a venue that already kind of has a specific atmosphere or
Yeah.
feel to it, which
Yeah.
ours did, and that was important to me, and that was kind of why, because I didn't want to spend a shit ton of money on decorations and other crap because I know a lot of people don't care, won't notice. So I did do a lot of that stuff myself, and it was fun. I mean, I used my crafty side and did the table numbers and the centerpieces and the place cards and shit like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, I was not going to drop a lot of money on that kind of thing because
But no one cares. And the thing is yes, most of the stuff you're going to realize in hindsight, right? So all these things that you're prepping for that are uber important for you to get done for the wedding, and you want that specific thing like that presence of that thing in the wedding, because without this thing, your wedding is going to be ruined. You think that now. But then a year after your wedding, if someone says, hey, remember that thing? You're like, oh yeah. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's no longer important. And
no, they're
probably
gonna
wouldn't even
remember.
be.
They're gonna remember like the wrestling entrances,
Yeah.
or like dancing to Limp Bizkit at the end of the night.
Those
or,
little decorations. I'm sure
Yeah.
you don't even remember most of them.
Well, I remember. No, one of the things that I had a mini freak out about was our flowers, because
Oh yeah.
3 days before I had a vision. The whole time I wanted orange sunflowers.
Hmm.
That was the only flower I was having, except for baby's breath.
Right.
Very, very simple, but that was the flower that I wanted. And 2 or 3 days before the wedding, the florist called me. We used Whole Foods for our florists, and they were great too.
Is Whole Foods a Northeast thing?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe. Anyway, she called me 2 or 3 days before the wedding and said, I have really bad news. The farmer or whoever it is that I sourced these types of flowers from, they didn't come out this year. Like, they look like shit. You don't want these flowers. So we have to pick a different flower, or I can dye regular yellow sunflowers orange. I can hand dip them and dye them. And she offered to do that for me.
Get dipping.
So I don't think that's what I felt so bad, but I was like, literally everything. Like if they're bright yellow, like now I look back, I'm like, it probably would have looked fine.
Get
Like
dipping, bitch.
But I just had my heart set on it. And again, it was like 2 days before the wedding. And I was like, so she offered it. So I took her up on it and I just tipped her really well because I can imagine that she spent the next 24 hours not sleeping, just dipping like 200 fucking sunflowers.
Look, the point of this is don't stress the little shit because at the end of the day, the wedding is just going to be about the two of you and it's going to be awesome. I pick a good venue, pick a good photographer, pick a good DJ. The rest is gravy. When open bar ended and actually the bar closed down, we were like, oh, okay, we have no more drinks, cool, whatever. They came up to us, the staff came up to us and said, what do you want to drink? You can drink all night.
My glass was never empty.
It was awesome. They were great.
The staff was amazing.
And we took advantage, of course.
And they had an on-site consultant. She wasn't like a full-blown wedding planner.
Right.
But it was someone just to help organize everything. And that was huge. Like anything like that is worth it. Yeah. In my opinion.
So just pay attention to the things that matter to you. Don't necessarily get lost in the details.
And pay attention to each other and the people there. Like, you're there to have fun and celebrate with your family and friends. And that's what matters.
All right, so that's the wedding, unless you can think of anything else.
No, those are the highlights, I think.
All right, cool. Yeah. So that being said, let's take a break here, and we'll get to married life in a little bit. Hang tight.
Well, so we already said that we had been together for quite some time before we finally got married.
6 years.
6 years once we got engaged. It was 8 years once we got married.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And we had lived together for more than half that time. So I think when I'm trying to think of like what has really changed in our relationship since we got married. And, I think there's a lot of people out there who, or maybe not a lot of people, there's some people who have the philosophy of, I don't really believe in marriage because it's just a piece of paper. It's just a legal thing. It doesn't mean anything. You can still have the same exact type of committed relationship.
That's true.
It is true. I'm not arguing it. I'm saying I know people who ascribe to that. And yeah, I think that's true about the relationship itself. I do think that it does add a level of accountability to each other.
I mean, you're obviously committing. There's a level of commitment,
right? It's an extra level of commitment, not necessarily, and it doesn't say anything about how much you love the person or anything, but I'm saying there is a like a practical component to it, like that if you end up splitting up, like if you're just in a committed relationship and you never get married and you break up, you go your separate ways.
Not really.
Whatever.
Not if you're living together and
there's legit. There are yes, children is a whole nother thing, whether or not you're married. But I'm saying it's easier in general to just kind of go your separate ways. You figure out the logistics of who gets what and your living situation.
I think you're oversimplifying it. I don't think it's simple. No,
I'm saying in comparison to if you're married and you have to go through the legal proceedings of a divorce.
Yeah, but you still have to go through the humiliation. No, I shouldn't say humiliation. Well, you still have to go through the difficulties of the number one thing I think of when, obviously we're not going to get divorced, but if we ever would, it's sort of, all right, who can I hang out with and who am I no longer supposed to be around? How do you balance out friendships? Well, there's a huge
social aspect to it, of course, because we have a ton of mutual friends and we're friends with each other's families and things. Yes, absolutely. And that's going to happen whether or not you are married. I'm not taking away from that. I'm saying the added layer of you now have to go through a divorce and the legal process and the cost associated with that. And that's a whole nother thing. So I just think that is really the only distinction that I can kind of make of being married or just staying in a committed relationship is there is this practical kind of logistic thing that you would have to deal with if you ended up not together. And I feel like that is where that extra level of commitment comes in, that it's not just about how much you love the person. It's like,
Yeah, I feel that
it's a big decision.
when people, and again, I'm not trying to generalize, obviously people have their own dynamics and whatnot, but when I hear that, why get married? What's the difference? To me, that means there's something preventing you from doing it. It's not something of, oh, what's the difference? It's not a complete indifference towards being married. There's something preventing you from being married, right? And maybe it is the legalities. Maybe it is. But for me, if you don't want to be married and you're thinking, well, what's the difference? I think the difference is the out clause, right? You're able to just leave if things go wrong.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that's why I think it doesn't necessarily mean you're how much you love the person is different, but I do think there's an extra level of commitment there.
Probably.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know. It's what changes from when we were together for so long to being married. The number one thing that I can really think of, and it's I don't know, to me, it's kind of profound. Maybe people don't think it is, but standing up in front of everybody. We invited all our most important people to our wedding, and we had the very most important people standing beside us, witnessing this in our wedding party. I made a promise to you in front of these people.
Yeah.
Right. And in a religious sense, people would say, oh, I made a promise to you in front of God. But for me, I made a promise in front of the people that matter to me most.
Right.
And this is one of the most important promises that I could ever keep in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And if that promise is broken, none of these motherfuckers will trust me. Right.
Yeah, that's true.
It to me, there's something profound about going up in front of everybody that matters to you. Some that don't, but everybody that matters to you on the most part.
Yeah.
And promising you complete devotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something to me that means a lot to me.
Right.
That I can't imagine turning my back on that, because then not only am I untrustworthy, but that whole thing now to the eyes of other people and, to you or to me or, whatever, it's just a facade.
Well, I think that's similar to, I use the word accountability. That kind of sounds like that's what you're describing.
Sure, yeah.
In a way. Yeah.
But that's not the reason why, obviously, I'm staying with you.
Right.
But
I was going to say the same thing, that all that being said, that is very meaningful to a couple who's deciding to get married. And I think that that's completely valid, but that doesn't necessarily, I guess I would say, I also wouldn't say that I don't believe that in divorce. Sometimes divorce happens and sometimes it's the right reason.
Right.
And it's okay.
No. Yeah. I'm not saying never get divorced.
I'm sorry. Not that it's the right reason. It's the right decision.
Yeah. No. Some people get married too early. Some people, developments happen. I understand that. And if forever, I can't imagine, because we've been together for so long, I can't imagine there would ever be a reason now that we would get divorced. But
right. But I'm saying if there was a legitimate, like you're saying, using us as the example, if we decided that was best for both of us for whatever reason,
it would be our
decision.
decision.
That was the best
yeah.
decision for us, and we both agreed on that the fact that you would be embarrassed because you made this promise in front of our friends and
that's
family.
a shitty reason to stay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what I'm trying to make the distinction, that I think it adds to the level of commitment. There's this aspect of accountability, of making this public promise, and all of that I think is valuable. But I just wanted to put in the caveat that I don't think that is necessarily a reason to stay in a bad marriage.
No. I think the reason why I illustrated this to begin with is to say this means so much to me, and I'm so confident in this promise.
Right,
that I'm willing to do
it in
this
front of
everybody.
Absolutely, yes.
And not turn my back on it. So
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and look, for us, the lives and the trajectory of our relationship haven't really shifted as a result of marriage. Definitely as a result of having a child.
Yeah, but just growing up, I think, in general, and going through all the different things that life throws at you, and navigating all these things together.
But if I were to recommend one thing, make sure you both have your sort of life plans, the big events after the wedding, agreed upon. Mm-hmm. So
the major things.
I don't recommend getting married to someone that is on the fence. It's say if person A really wants kids. Mm-hmm. I'm saying really wants kids, and person B is sort of like, I don't know. I can see in the future there could be an issue.
Right.
Whereas if person A is like, oh, we'll see, and person B is, we'll see, there might be some conflict later on, but I feel that you're both walking into it sort of
with an open
see what
mind or
happens.
kind of willing to
We'll
talk
see
about
where
it.
our
Yeah.
situation is. Maybe we'll change our mind.
Right.
But I don't think it's good to walk into a marriage when one person really wants to have children and another person doesn't share the desire, maybe not nearly as strong, but just a desire in
At
general
all.
to have
Yeah.
kids. To me,
If you're on
there's
the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to having children, that's like
it's going to be an issue.
And if it's non-negotiable for either person,
It's going to be an issue.
That's a huge
I know for us, when we waited, quote unquote, a long time to have children, we waited a long time to get married. We talked about
That's
it.
what I'm
I got
saying.
married at
We're on a
29.
slow timeline for everything.
Right, I'm
apparently.
34 now. I got married I was 29. So, just under 30. Nailed it. But, when it came to having kids, we both knew we were going to have a child. We just didn't know when it was going to happen.
Right.
You were eager to have it rather quickly. I was saying to myself, hey, let's enjoy a year of marriage.
We were in agreement about that. I
Okay,
want to enjoy
right,
a year
right.
of marriage.
And then
I was just afraid, to be totally honest, and we're going to get into we won't get into it too far, but I was nervous about being able to get pregnant because I had heard some stories from friends, family who had trouble and it took them a long time.
Yeah.
Like more than a year. And everything I read said, expect for it to take at least 6 months to get pregnant, blah, blah, blah. And
Took us
took 2 months,
2
I
months.
think. So anyway, so that was my only hang up. I was in agreement with you that ideally I would like to be married for a year, buy
and
a
then
house.
we had a house and wanted that for a year.
Exactly. And to be able to settle in and kind of make sure we had all our ducks in a row.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I had this nagging nervousness about what if it takes a really long time to get pregnant.
Sure. I just think that when you have these open conversations, we both wanted kids.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the timeline and the trajectory might have been a little altered.
Yep.
But I was adamant, no, I want to be married for a year. And then we got the house. No, I want to have a house for a year. I just want to be able to settle in.
Right.
Know the layout of the house, being able to turn the lights off and walk around with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do that because I don't want to be chasing my
It
child
would have
around.
been too much change all at once.
Yeah, I wanted to be settled. I wanted it to feel like our home.
Right.
And I feel like a year is a good period in order to establish that.
And then we would have recognized if there were any major things that we had to fix or anything
or we didn't
that we
like
needed
about the neighborhood.
Sure. Yeah. But I think all that being said, that was all very ideal. And I think we've been very fortunate that we've been able to things have kind of happened within our ideal timelines. Yeah, we're planners. I mean, we joke about, like at my work and stuff or just in general that I have an Excel spreadsheet for everything, which we didn't even talk about it with the wedding itself. I had a binder and many Excel spreadsheets. I also recommend that. A lot of lists, but that's me and my type A-ness. But anyway, same thing for this. I feel like we plan a lot but I think we both also had the understanding that if things don't go as planned, it's okay. Like we had each other's back. We knew what our priorities were, and we were confident that we would figure it out together.
Yeah. I guess the point is before the wedding and before proposing or talking about being married, make sure you have that shit established. That's my one advice.
The kid question is something that I think
it's pretty big.
If it's non-negotiable for someone in either direction, they either really, really want to have kids or they're sure that they really, really don't. That's probably not something that's going to change. Right.
And maybe you can live with not having a child.
No, but that's what I mean. But if you feel really strongly about that, you're probably not going to change your mind. If you're kind of indifferent and you could go either way, I think that's fine. Like you just go with the punches and you whatever. But I think if you feel really strongly in either direction, that's going to be something that's really, really hard to navigate.
Another thing is, when you're thinking about being married to someone, obviously this might be sort of obvious and intuitive, but make sure the individual is supportive. And obviously with all these projects that I've undergone, I have 4 podcasts, including this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the type of person that my job is my job.
Right.
It's not something that I'm passionate about. Sorry for people that listen, maybe for my job. I'm just not passionate about it.
It's just to make a living.
It's something just to get by. And I don't think that's unusual.
Right.
But I'm also the type of person that needs to sort of dip his toes into things creatively. in order to feel fulfilled. For lack of a better way to put it, this may sound terrible, but I don't mean it this way. My family, you and our child, great. I love it. It's the most important thing to me. But I need that creativity that my family can't necessarily, unleash in me.
It's not a creative outlet.
No. So I strive for that. I need that. It's something that I have to have. So it's good to have a partner that will sort of not just influence that, but encourage that and to push that. So if there's a time where you need you time, and there's a time that you need some sort of things that you want to do creatively or otherwise on your own, I think having an understanding from your partner is super important. And that is something that we certainly have worked on throughout our marriage. Obviously, in the beginning of our relationship, we both just want each other all the time. Right. And that's...
And it was very uncommon that we would hang out with any of our friends without the other.
Right.
Like we were together all the time.
And, obviously it led to this project that you're listening to right now, we're doing together. Mm-hmm. But the initial podcasts that I've started were void of you. Mm-hmm. And
Which, for the record, this project was your idea.
Yes.
I wasn't like, hey, I'm jealous of all your podcasts. I want to do one with you.
No.
It was your idea.
You want to start a podcast.
Yeah.
So you want to start
Yeah, that'll be another one.
But yeah, I think having that sort of understanding and underlining support for each other, because you're fortunate enough that your job is your passion.
Yes, and it challenges me all the time.
Yeah, if you do, side work or dabble your toes into agencies that are sort of similar to yours, we make it work. We make it work and say, yeah, I'll do whatever you need me to do, and you go do it. But because let's be honest, the amount of times I come home and you're like, what do you have tonight? Oh, I have 2 podcasts tonight, or this is the weekly schedule. It's a lot.
It is, yeah. But that is something I think that is a key kind of like revelation that we had over the last few years. When you first started your podcast, I was kind of jealous of how much time it took from us and how much it demanded of you, and I was trying to be supportive, but it was just hard to navigate
because it was a learning process to how to do it and editing and whatnot.
It took a ton of your time in the beginning,
and now
it's better
4
now.
years later I sort of fell into this groove where I know how to do it just very very, very quickly.
Right. So it's gotten better from that perspective. But I think also just realizing, like what you just said, that distinction of the fact that for me to understand that you had such a desire to do these things outside of work and outside of your family was a function of the fact that you don't have that anywhere else in your life. And I don't have that experience, because for me, I am brain dead by the end of the day, because work is so challenging to me, and I do have to use my creativity and all of this stuff, and it's something I am passionate about. That at the end of the day, we talked about guilty pleasures. I want to zone out to The Bachelor for a couple hours because I need to turn my brain off.
Right.
You're the opposite. You're doing kind of like monotonous work all day for 8 or 9 hours, and then you need somewhere to go and apply your creativity. So we are completely flip-flopped on that. So I think finally having that understanding of why each of us decides to use their free time in such a different way, it was a game changer for us to finally understand that about each other.
Right. And, sort of piggybacking off of this, there was a time, obviously it's no secret to anybody that the other podcasts that I do are on the Toronto Raptors and the Toronto Blue Jays. And when you start a podcast or you start a project, you're super passionate about it. You're super, I'm shooting for the moon. I'm going to be, I'm going to have my own radio station one day or whatnot. You have these visions. Obviously, I'm a little bit more mature to that now, and I understand the landscape of podcasting is that this is a bubble that's going to burst any month now. It's just there's a podcast for everything. Mm-hmm. This is why I consider it to be the newest form of social media, because there are so many more people picking up independent podcasts.
Right.
And we have met other individuals as a result that aren't famous, that aren't, well known, but it is sort of other people that we've met that are like us through this avenue. And it's sort of a way.
It is another social thing.
It is. It's like Facebook. You meet someone on Facebook and you become friends with that person or whatnot. Podcasting's the same way, but it's a little bit more transparent as to the individual you're talking to.
Right.
Because you're actually listening to that person.
And sometimes you listen to another podcast and you're like, is that me? Because we sound like the same person.
Right.
We need to be friends.
So with you know, in our marriage, you obviously knew I had these, you know, impulses, and when I get passionate about things, and obviously when I started the other podcast, I was saying, okay, so there might be a chance we're gonna move to Toronto one day.
Yeah, you were making plans.
I'm gonna be in demand. I'm still not in demand.
Although
anywhere.
let's not put moving to Canada off the table.
No, right.
Until
but
November 3rd.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is, you know, if you have any, you know, long-term goals that you want to meet, or say the place that you're living in is not the place that you necessarily want to stay forever, but your partner loves where they are, that needs to be discussed, right? And, you know, with you, the hurdle, because I wanted to move to Toronto even before.
Oh yeah, that's always been your
the
dream.
podcast, and you said, well, look, our family's here. It's just when we have children, it's easier.
My
for
job,
our
I would not be
parents,
able to
right?
move to Toronto.
Our parents can just come and watch the children. Our friends,
Yep.
won't you miss your friends? I'm like, no, fuck them.
Yeah.
But
not to say that we wouldn't make new friends and it probably have a great life wherever we would end up, but my gut feeling was that it wasn't the right time or the right decision to think about leaving.
Right. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is have those conversations before you get married,
Yeah.
because you don't want to be put in a position. Obviously, if things come up with your job and you're being transferred,
Sure.
I think there's an underlining understanding when you have that job and say,
Yeah.
hey, there's a good chance I
Right.
could be relocated
Well, it's also
somewhere.
Yeah, but sometimes things are unpredictable and shit happens and things change. All of these discussions that you have, it's not like you're signing a contract that you agree on these things or you're writing
Correct,
it in
yeah.
stone.
Be
It's
flexible.
just trying, of course, yeah, but it's just trying to make sure you have an understanding of what each other's priorities are and have a general agreement about those things.
Yeah.
And then, yes, have flexibility within that you, and being able to trust the other person that together you're going to make the best decision for your family. At the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah, I think life's, you know, will obviously adjust, but being able to be fluid with life circumstances and being able to compromise is huge. Huge. There are going to be things that, you know, before you get married, you're saying, and I said, what's going to be the difference? And overwhelmingly, things haven't changed. You know,
Right.
Obviously, being a parent, things have changed in that regard. But in terms of our relationship before we got married and after, nothing. The next day, I didn't feel different.
Yeah.
Right. Even though I just talked up the ceremony and making that promise in front of everybody, to me, that's just a formality. We were doing, to me, we already had
We
that
knew what our
established.
commitment was
Yeah.
to each other already.
I knew we
Yeah.
were going to get married when we first started dating.
I know.
And so that we were already convinced of this
Right.
for 8 years leading up to the wedding. So
Yeah.
again, not to minimize the importance of the wedding, but it was just a formality in a way because we knew this was inevitable. I woke up that day thinking, yeah, this is just the next step. That's why I
Right.
wasn't nervous. I was obviously very emotional because it's a very emotionally overwhelming experience, but to me, having second thoughts, no, not at all, because I was thinking this is part of the linear plan
Right.
that this is what you do.
Well, so I knew you were going to say this is what you do. I
No,
feel like
not as a getting married and establishing those. You and I. This is
right
just what,
for us.
yeah.
Yes, that was always the plan. Yes, that's an important caveat. I think because I think a lot of people do just kind of go through those motions, and I think sometimes people end up. That's something I think that might contribute to people getting married for the wrong reason, is because it's an expectation of that's just what you do. Like in our society, it's like the whole, in our generation at least, it's like you go to school, you get a job,
go to college, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Get married.
Right. Get married, buy a house, pop out a few kids, happily
Die.
ever after. Like, yeah, like, and that is such a cookie cutter, like, just it's not necessarily the right thing for everybody. So I just feel like there can be a lot of pressure from family or just our society in general on taking that linear path. And for us, it just seemed that was what we genuinely wanted. It was the right decision for us. We are happy with that linear cookie cutter experience.
It's what we both wanted, though.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I just want to acknowledge that I think sometimes people feel pressured by that being the expectation.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair. But
Sure.
but for us, it was right.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and wondering what changes after getting married, nothing really changes. And at least for us, nothing has really changed. Obviously, the level of commitment, as I already talked about, is amped up, mostly because of the promise that you made in front of whatever you hold sacred to you.
Right.
But also, the tax break is fun. I mean, I'm being honest. I'm not going to skate under that.
Well, you just love it because I file our taxes together jointly. You don't have to do shit except give me your W-2.
It is a little overstated how much more you get. You don't really get that much more.
Yeah.
Getting a child, you get a lot more.
Yeah. But it all evens out because you're also spending a shit ton more.
Yeah. But, in terms of the dynamic of our relationship, I can't speak to any changes because we were always living the same. I was always farting in front of you the same and burping in front of you the same. It doesn't matter. We've seen each other naked.
Yeah. I mean, I think, if you've lived with the person for a good amount of time.
I do recommend that.
Living together first.
Live with your partner before you get married to make sure this is the life. I'm okay with this life. I can live with this.
You specifically wanted to make sure that I could live with the smells.
Of course. Of course. But, also there's for lack of a better way to put it, there's a grooming process with both of the partners to each other. It's saying, like, not only do I had to have adapted before when it comes to cleanliness or just being a dude slob before, but you had to adapt of, hey, just kind of pump the brakes and relax. I'm not, when we first started dating and living together, I was going out and seeing my friends. It's not that I don't care about you. I just wanted to see my friends. I needed to do that stuff. And so having that sort of understanding established when you're living together, you can say, yes, I feel comfortable doing this forever. Because you don't want to not live with the person, because anybody that you live with, it could be a new roommate in college or whatever, you get thrown in that situation, both of you have your own habits that may come into serious conflict with each other. So if you're as someone that's dating, two individuals that are dating each other, if you are living together for a decent amount of time, I'd say at least a year, you know whether or not you can live with this, and whether or not that person will adjust.
Right. I think that's what it is, more than the habits themselves. I think that it's, if it's like a cleanliness, or, you have differences in how you keep your house or whatever. Those are things that I think people can change. I mean, it can be hard if it's a habit that's been, with you for 20 to 30 years or whatever. Sure. But those are, I think, pretty easily adjusted if you're willing to make the effort. But I think more so, finding out how the person responds to you telling them that this is an issue, and whether or not you're able to even work through that type of conflict is a good kind of test for the relationship. I don't think it's about the behaviors or the habits themselves. It's more about just being able to test your, resiliency in terms of the conflicts. Yeah.
Make sure that you're able to be fluid with
things.
And
you're willing, you're bound to see your partner at their worst. Whereas if you don't live together, if you have a terrible day at work or whatever, you just go home and you tell your significant other, I don't want to go out tonight. I don't want to get together. I had a bad day. I'm just going to go to bed, or whatever the case might be. And you're like, if you live together, your partner might be on the other end of that really bad day, and you might take it out on them, or it might result in a fight. I'm saying, like, if you live together, you're bound to end up in more tense situations that are easier to avoid even ever having to experience if you don't live together.
Right. Or, if I know I can speak from personal experience. For me, if I have a bad day, I'm very closed off. Right. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be around people. I'm very much that person that wants to be in a ball, in a corner, and just soak in it for a while. Mm-hmm. If you
I want to talk your ear off about it,
right? If you didn't know that about me, and we just started living together, you might think I'm pissed at you. You might think I don't want anything to do with you, or maybe I'm regretting this marriage thing. It's good to know before how you handle inner conflict, or how do you handle issues that are going on, so okay, this is just part of the process that he or she has to deal with. It's not me. Mm-hmm. It's not us. It's, and if you just get thrown into this living situation, because when you're just dating, you're picking and choosing when you want to see each other.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you don't really have the option to not be together, even if you're not, like, in the best state of mind.
And now your privacy is that person's privacy,
Right.
and vice versa. Obviously, we have our moments where I'm just like, we both want our separate space. And
Sure.
we respect that, but by and large, my privacy is yours now. and
Right.
is
When you
shared.
say you need private time, a lot of times that also still includes me. Like I'm
Yes.
still sitting there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It means don't talk to me right now.
Yeah.
That's what-
Yeah.
You can stay here. Just
I can physically
Stop
be in the
talking.
room.
But anyways, yeah, those are that just scratches the surface.
Sure.
After recording this for an hour, I come to the realization that we're definitely not experts because our experience, obviously we've had our ups and downs, but when it comes to the transition from not being married to being married and establishing that married life, it was super seamless.
Yeah.
Because we were living together for, at that point, the day we got married, 5 years, a little bit more than that.
Mhm.
So it comes as no surprise that the transition period was very smooth.
Right.
So hopefully, even if you're not in that same sort of situation, obviously it's not a requirement to live together for 5 years before you get
Yeah.
married. But if you are in a situation where you guys are thinking about getting married and, you're not living together, by no means am I saying this is a requirement. Definitely. You guys know your dynamics better than we do. You know what makes your partner tick better than we do. So these are just suggestions. Obviously, the way you guys function, the way you guys do things is going to be totally different. Maybe it's similar. I don't know. But from some people that have been, married for just 5 years, let's be honest, it's not really a grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But together for 13, I do think that having that sort of baseline history and establishment is important. And
Served us well.
yeah, don't when it comes to planning, don't rush into it. And that's the same thing about getting married in general. Don't rush into it. Take these things and sort of parse them out and tweak out the finer details that, as I said in the beginning, might not matter to you later on, but at least you have those established and you can sort of venture out into this life till you die, hopefully.
Yeah.
With an understanding of things. That's
Right. On the same page in general.
So that's going to do it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy married life.
Yeah.
And if you stumbled upon this looking for advice, we probably gave you bad advice, but at least I did. Probably, definitely. But if you like what you've heard, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're everywhere. CastBox even. We're on all the major podcatchers. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please leave us 5 stars and a quick review. Hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends about it. Look, if you have people that are dying for some independent podcast which a married couple literally talks about anything randomly on a weekly basis, please refer them to this podcast While She's Napping. We really appreciate it. Again, next month, starting in October, starting next week, we are going to start discussing major talking points and issues when it comes to the election. So what are we doing next week? Are we doing Second Amendment?
I can't remember. We were also going to talk about QAnon at some point.
Okay.
I don't know. There's so much. We only have like 3 weeks or
It'll all
4 weeks.
tie in.
I know. But we're just gonna, I think we want to just talk about some of the things that we've just been talking about.
Sure.
Like we see it going around social media or whatever, and we end up having a conversation. We figured why not just do it on the podcast? So we'll see.
All right. Well,
We'll see what's in the headlines.
Keep your eyes open and your ears peeled. You don't keep your ears peeled.
I think it's your eyes peeled and your ears. Keep your
That's
eyes
the
peeled.
one.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the one. Do those things. And we'll hit you up next week. But thanks for listening. Take care.
Bye.